Good day and welcome back to Below the Curve Gaming. So today we have the final mission from ITS Season 13, which is Unmasking, and it's going to be fought between two new armies on the channel, which is the USAriadna and the shock army of Acontecimento. So this will be quite exciting because this is an army that I've been trying to get hold of for a while. And thanks to Toby Hall, I have been able to buy the entire Acontecimento range. This army isn't completely painted because I wanted to showcase Toby's army for him on the channel as he came. He's done a really nice job with the airbrush. And they've got special Micro Art Studio bases. So the models that Toby supplied me will be used as they came out of the box yesterday. I'm really looking forward to using this army. Ben's really looking forward to using the US. This harks back to some of our first ever Infinity games 5 or 6 years ago. The mission will be appearing on your screen about now, so you can pause video to read the minutiae of the rules. But the long and short of it is we have 3 terminals, one here, and one here. And we have 3 HVTs each, which we note down in secret, one of them which is the main target and 2 decoys, and you have to use the terminals to work out which HVT is the real target, and then you have to try and assassinate them. So I won the lieutenant roll-off, so the shock army of Acontecimento will be going second. However, I will have to set up first, and I will be deploying over here beside the Squiddly Diddly and the Kobe Cow, as well as the office buildings. So we'll be back in a minute with the army breakdowns and the deployment. So here's the shock army. So as we can see, Toby has done a really nice job on this sort of blue-green teal colour. It would appear, has airbrushed them, and we can see in the Naga, they've got the zenithal highlights, so they look lighter from above. So really pleased with these. I will not be repainting them. I'll just be picking out the things like the eyes, the tunics that hadn't quite been finished the skin, that sort of thing. They will be getting based on the Infinity Alpha series bases, however, but that's because I want ones that will fit with our table. The force is as follows. We have 5 regulars. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4 with combi rifles, and one of them is the hacker, which is the pointing girl. One of them is the paramedic, which is the old model here, the sort of hunched over one. The Naga will be a regular sniper, and then the model in the larger base is a sniper when she enters sapper mode. We have Lieutenant Stephen Rao, who gives +1 command token. And then we have 2 further Bagmari. We have a mine layer with a multi-sniper rifle and a paramedic. That's Combat Group 1. Combat Group 2 has a Teak Balang, which is a Silhouette 6, still 3 structure tag. We've got an Acontecimento engineer who has mimetism -3. We also have a Tech B, just in case, because I really don't want the Teak Balang to die. It's going to do all the heavy lifting for my force. We've got a War Core, just to keep things honest, and just to give me an extra model and the potential to stun. We have an Evo Hacker Mulebot, and then we have the 7-point Mulebot that's just got the deactivator and the repeater and baggage. Now, it will do very little for the force, other than the fact that it's got the repeater, which allows me then to hack through it, and also it generates an order for very few points. We've got our 3 HVTs. The real HVT is actually going to be the Kaje Diplomat. We've also got the Flight Officer and the Data Banker. Now, she only turned up quite late yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to even spray her. Now, Ben's US has what looks to be a fire team of grunts led by the Unknown Ranger with Rosie in it. He's got a War Driver, a Dozer, and a 112 FTO and a tractor mule. That's his Group 1. Group 2 has a pair of Marauders, a Minuteman, and a Devil Dog team with the Antipode. So he's at least 3 orders shy here, so I can pretty much guarantee there's some shenanigans. However, I have some of my own. I have Dart, the Optimate Huntress here, who is deployed as a camo marker, and with her viral weapon, I'm hoping that she cuts through Ben's forces like they're not even there. So we'll be back in a minute with my deployment. So here we have my deployment going from left to right. We have the War Corps just here. She's peeking around the side of this building, and just up ahead of her is Dart. We have the Evil Hacker and the Baggage Remote. They'll be making a beeline for the Happy Pandas terminal there. We've got the Bagmari team here with a mine. Up on the roof, we have the Teak Blang, and the engineer is deployed prone. And down below it, we've got the Tech B as well. Now, the Tech B is a specialist operative, so she'll be tasked, hopefully, with capturing this terminal here. Then we've got the Acontecimento regular, the full fire team, the Corps, with the Hacker, and they're going to be tasked with capturing the terminal here. The Kage Diplomat, as I said, is my real target. She's over here at the side. We've got the Data Banker here, and then over here we've got the Flight Officer. The fire team leaders for the time being will be the Mine Layer and will be probably the Sapper. I don't intend to enter Sapper mode for a while with the Acontecimento regulars, because obviously it stops you moving. It can be quite disadvantageous. But once I've got them to where they need to be, I will aim to stick them into Sapper mode and just start firing out shots with the sniper rifle, hopefully shutting down quite a lot of the table. I'll be the first to admit the list's not got the biggest guns in it. It's got a pair of sniper rifles. It's obviously got the HMG and the Teak Blang, and then the rest of my SWCs were spent on hackers. So we'll see how it does. I've not faced the US in a long time, so could be a bit of a rude awakening, but we're hoping it doesn't go too badly. So I realised I'd forgot to hold a model in reserve. Now, thanks to Lieutenant Stephen Rao granting the extra command token, what I've been able to do is actually I'm going to hold back the Teak Blang and I'm going to hold back the engineer. And I will then deploy them once I see Ben's army. They're probably going to go in the same place, but it might mean that he places something in a less advantageous position because he doesn't realise where they're going to be.
Hello, it's Ben, and this is my USAriadna Force for Unmasking. Now, firstly, will be a bit of a blast from the past for me to use USAriadna. I did play them back in N3. And I had originally bought these models a while back, just because I saw them going cheap on Facebook or eBay, I'm not quite sure. The army pack for USAriadna with the limited edition dismounted Maverick. And so I'd picked them up relatively cheap. And I hadn't done anything with them. But recently I started painting them up. My initial idea, and you may kind of notice from the kind of paint scheme, was to paint them in a way that they could be used as either US or as French for the Murph. And that was the intention, certainly for them. However, I have actually just bought an entire French army that I spotted on eBay and then picked up a couple of the other models from Facebook and a store in Singapore, bizarrely. So these are going to be purely for US moving forward. So I may go back and paint camouflage on the kind of more SWAT-looking uniforms. I had followed roughly a paint scheme that I'd seen on the Facebook group for Ariadna, and the guy's stuff was stunning. So he had been using them as the French as well, so that's why I'd kind of gone for that. There's a few stand-ins at the moment, just because the US models I've got for the Unknown Ranger and the War Driver. I haven't completed painting. I do have some more painted models than I've got here, but I had to... The Minuteman that I had is a different sculpt, and I didn't have space for the grunts that I've painted up as well, or the Maverick. So I've kind of gone for a mixture of painted models, plus also I'd been painting towards this list, as well as getting the army box painted up first and then starting to branch out. So without any further ado, on to the actual list itself. So it's 15 models, or there's 16 models due to the peripheral. However, 15 stat blocks, as it were. Group 1 has 8 in it, and it is the Unknown Ranger, which I'm using my Cosmoflot model for, which is made out of the Spec Ops model. I do have the US version of it, which I will paint up, as I say. And she's going to lead a Fireteam Corps. I have Rosie Monroe, who counts as a grunt. Now, this is using the new Fireteam rules, so this will be our first game with them. So this Fireteam Corps all counts as grunts, which will be quite handy moving forward. I have a Grunt Lieutenant, which is this one with the rifle. Just a rifle version as opposed to the rifle grenade launcher. Originally I had it in, and I do have the model painted up for it, but I then had to cut some points. I've got the Forward Observer, which I'm using the Maverick, dismounted Maverick for, just because I thought with the binoculars she looked a bit more like a Forward Observer. And then the final member is the 112 FTO, who counts as a grunt for the purposes of the core fire team. I then have a dozer and a tractor mule, which is Uragan multi-rocket launcher, which is a total reaction bot. So this will be my first time using the tractor mules. So I've used them in the past in N3, but this, as I say, will be the first time in N4. So looking forward to trying that out. And then I've got the War Driver, which I'm using the UHAHU model, which I use for the Cosmoflot. I have bought the DERS Hacker model that was a limited edition for, I believe it was N3 rulebook, that I had in the past, but here I managed to find again. So I'm going to paint her up to go with the US once I get round to her. I've got a rather large collection to paint my way through at the moment. Moving on to Group 2, I have a Devil Dog team. Now, I've gone for the 23.1, the chain rifle AP heavy pistol, partly because that's what the model has, but also originally I felt I didn't have the points for the boarding shotgun version. Then towards the end I found that I was struggling to actually fill or to spend all my points, so I could have upgraded it, but I wanted to add an extra model instead. So that's them at the back. I then have a Harris team, which is a Marauder with multispectral visor and heavy rocket launcher, a Marauder paramedic with the heavy flamethrower and rifle, and then I've got the Minuteman AP heavy machine gun with NCO. I'm interested to see how they fare in the game. I have been doing a wee bit of research into some of the US stuff and also just list writing in general. So I think it should be a Harris that's got a bit of everything. Paramedic to get them back up, the heavy rocket launcher for a bit of a defense piece, and then the APHMG for an offensive piece. So we'll see how that goes. And then I have 3 camo markers, which will be signified by these 3D prints, which will pop out. Now, the 3 camo markers are a hard case, which will be tactical bow. It's an irregular tactical bow and rifle. It's got surprise attack. I did think it had hidden deployment, but it's just infiltration and camouflage. It does have decoy 1, so I will need to get a 4th camo token, which I think I put back from in the other room. Mimetism as well, and stealth, so it'll be quite interesting to see with the tactical bow and stealth if I can get some kills off with that without alerting others. And then I have 2 of the same profile, which I'm using 2 different models to signify them, just because my second version of the one with the rifle I haven't based as yet, but I did have a duplicate of it, which is the Foxtrot Forward Observer with rifle, shock mines, flashballs. It also has surprise attack, camouflage, infiltration, and mimetism, and stealth. So I'll be interested to see how they work. With the exclusion zone, it's going to be a wee bit more difficult to infiltrate them as far forward as initially I had expected. And the list only has 1 hacker as well, which is all I can take in the USAriadna. So I'll only have 1 button pusher that gets a bonus to use the data terminals. So I'll have to try and prioritize keeping the hacker alive, the war driver. I went for the hacking device one as opposed to zero pain. Comes with 6th sense and a boarding shotgun. So hopefully be able to deter some close range stuff whilst it runs up to push the buttons. So I'll move on to deployment. I should say, sorry, just before I do so, that I've got 3 HVTs, which will be the Kazakh Doctor, Casanova, and then a 3D printed HVT. I'm going to use, I think, the 3D printed one as the designated target. So moving on to deployment. So this is the USAriadna deployment, starting with my HVTs. I have the designated target. I have decoy 1 and decoy 2. Then I have the Fireteam Harry, which is the Minuteman AP HMG, which will be the team leader. The Paramedic, who's got forward deployment +4, and the Marauder with a heavy rocket launcher, which is forward deployment +4 as well. I then have my War Driver, and then over here I have a Foxtrot Ranger, which will be the female model. I then have my core team, which is Rosie, who is forward deployment, the Lieutenant, which is a bit of a precarious position, but anyway, the 112, the Unknown Ranger, which will be the team leader, and the forward observing Grunt. There's nothing really opposite them at the moment, so I'm going to take advantage of the fact I'm moving first to push up and hopefully get some aggressive fire lanes for Martin's turn for offering some AROs. Then I have the Uralan tractor mule and a dozer beside it. Ahead of them I have at the extent of my deployment zone, I have the Devil Dog team, and then I have the hard case. Now this is the hard case itself, and the decoy, which is over there. So I've still got 1 forward observer Foxtrot that's kept back. So I think Martin's got 1 model to deploy as well. So we'll come back with the deployment for that in a moment. So with the held back models, Martin held back 2 due to his extra command token. So we've got a Teak Balang and an engineer prone in base contact. I deployed my final camo token beside the Marauder Paramedic. So on to turn 1 for the US. So here we are at the end of the USAriadna turn 1. I started by using the impetuous order to move the Devil Dog team up. Unfortunately, the Teak Balang shot the antipode, despite the Devil Dog himself throwing smoke, and so the antipode has dropped unconscious due to the HMG. I then used its irregular order to move him further up and hide him in the smoke. There is a smoke template there, but I just used a wee token to make it a wee bit easier. The camel markers used their irregular order to move up. The Harris in Group 2 used a regular order, using the AP-HMG as the team leader to trade some shots with the Teak Balang, which did take 2 wounds off it. Unfortunately, the heavy rocket launcher was targeted by the Teak Balang instead of the AP-HMG, and he has dropped unconscious. I then, later in the turn, spent an extra order on the paramedic to move across rather than shoot it with a med pack. I'm not sure what I was thinking. And the regular with a combi rifle poking behind that building managed to drop it unconscious. So in Group 2, the Harris is now disbanded as only the Minuteman's left. Martin had taken 2 orders out of that pool, which did make it quite difficult to fit everything in. Other than that, the camel token moved up and was discovered as a foxtrot. In Group 1, I moved the fire team up, and the Unknown Ranger traded shots with the Teak Balang. Martin passed both saves, but the Teak Balang took a test, opting not to use courage and dropped prone. So with the AROs relatively dealt with, the core team moved further up, with the Unknown Ranger moving into the Happy Panda, which he traded shots with the Bagmari Harris. Unfortunately, the Unknown Ranger is on no wound incapacitation, just at the window of the Happy Panda there, after he was criticaled by the combi rifle and also took a double action shot from the multi-sniper rifle and managed to miss with 3 out of his 5 dice rolls, and the other ones were beaten by the combi rifle's crit. I then spent 2 orders on the dozer to move him up into contact with the car and potentially give some AROs over there. And the final orders were spent with the war driver, who moved up, got into contact with the data terminal, and succeeded, critical no less, his whip roll, and chose to unveil or unmask the Kuji delegate, who turns out to be the designated target. So strike 1 for me. I now need to get over there and kill her. I then spent another order to move further across towards this terminal here. And just to show you, terminal in the middle is switched on to the US side. So that's all the action from the US turn 1. So now on to the Shock Army's turn 1.
So the first turn for the Shock Army was not nearly as successful as hoped. The regulars started off by moving round the building twice, and the multi-sniper rifle took out the Minuteman HMG, which I was feeling was a good way to start the turn. The Foxtrot Ranger had attempted some forward observing, but had been unsuccessful. I then spent a full order to enter into sapper mode so that I was covering my Kaji delegate, and hopefully when Ben attempts an assassination run, I'd be able to gun them down. Next up, I moved the Bagmari fire team slightly and very foolishly attempted to place deployable, which resulted in the sniper mine layer being dropped by the Unknown Ranger. The Teak Balang on the roof had engaged in a bit of a scrap with the Foxtrot Ranger down here, who it managed to knock unconscious, with Rosie, who it did not, and with the tractor mule, which also did nothing to. Unfortunately, Rosie's ARO took out the engineer, and so then I used Climbing Plus to bring the Teak Balang down to the ground and continue the firefight, but more to the point, I brought the Tech B round to attempt to repair the Teak Balang, which was looking a bit dicey. The Tech B managed with the first 2 orders, her irregular order followed by one of the orders from the pool, to take the Teak Blang down to unconscious 2, which was not in the game plan, and then eventually managed to take the Teak Blang back up to its 1 wound it had left. So all in all, she used 3 orders to leave the Teak Blang in the same state it had already been in. This was not what I was hoping for. Stephen Rao moved up and attempted to assassinate the Unknown Ranger, and instead got shot in the face for his troubles and killed outright. This has placed me in loss of lieutenant at the end of the turn. Bit of a disaster. The final Big Mary attempted a spot of revenge with absolutely no success, and got killed as well. The camel marker revealed itself to be Dart, and managed to take a wound off the Devil Dog with her viral bow. Thankfully, the Devil Dog was unable to intuitive attack as an ARO. However, with Dart now revealed, the War Core couldn't activate because the Devil Dog could smack down a massive template and potentially kill Dart, who wouldn't be able to respond. Finally, the fire team sort of spread itself out a little bit and managed to take down the Foxtrot Ranger, which had been skulking over here. But all in all, this has not been considered the most successful turn for the Shock Army. And we are starting to question, maybe, just maybe, there's a reason for a discontinued range at this point. So, we'll be back soon with the US turn 2.
So here we are at the end of the USAriadna turn 2. I started by spending 2 command tokens to move the Devil Dog and the Camel tokens into Order Pool 1. The Impetuous Order, then on the Devil Dog, it moved up and chain rifled Dart, who succeeded her dodge, as did the War Core. I then spent the Impetuous Order from the Devil Dog to move into contact with Dart and fight her in CC. She fought back, and the War Core succeeded a dodge. The CC Dart saved one of the saves. It was a crit from the Devil Dog, and dropped to no wound incapacitation with a second. I then had to spend a regular order on the Devil Dog, and it dispatched Dart in combat. I then changed the link leader to the Forward Observer, who was in contact with the data terminal, and after I think 2 orders, on the 3rd order, I believe I successfully managed to activate the data terminal. I targeted the security officer, unveiling her as a decoy. I spent an order on the Devil Dog, who shot her, but she succeeded in dodging. I then had to spend a further order on the Dozer, who managed to plug her with 2 rifle shots. I then moved the core team back to the Unknown Ranger, who moved up and fired at the Teak Blang and managed to drop it to unconscious level 2 and kill the Tech B with its shots. Then, unopposed, the core team moved through the Happy Panda and are now kind of in the street here. That left me with an irregular order on the Camel tokens here, who moved up, and one final regular order, which was used over on the one final regular order, which was used on the War Driver, who continued prone to crawl towards this final terminal. So currently, I have some victory points due to killing one of the decoys. So I think I've scored 1 victory point for that. So on to the Shock Army turn 2.
So it's the end of the Shock Army turn 2. And unfortunately, because I started and lost a lieutenant, it was always going to be a very short turn. And what I did was I turned 3 of my irregular orders from the Sapper, the Hacker, and the paramedic into regular orders using my last 3 command tokens. Obviously, I'd got the bonus one from Stephen Rowe. This allowed me to activate the fire team to start with, and I tried to gun down the 112 and the Devil Dog. The first time I managed to miss twice with the sniper against the 112, and the Devil Dog passed its save. The second order, I managed to drop both of them, which weakened the big fire team because then they were down to 4, and also meant I didn't have a werewolf rampaging through my lines. I used an irregular order on this chap with the combi rifle, breaking the fire team and moving him round to shoot at the war driver, who I hit but passed her save. And so I then used the last regular order to open fire again, and this time I gunned her down, thus removing Ben's ability to hopefully hack the final console. So the war core moved up, and the plan was that if she could force the camo markers to reveal themselves, she might be able to stun one. Then I could move the hacking drone up using its irregular order this turn, but it's got quite a large movement, and then next turn I could potentially hack it. Unfortunately, there was a few flaws with this. Notably, the worker got shot in the face by a hard case and died, and also I hadn't twigged that I actually have no way of killing anybody over on this side because all my people have para close combat weapons or stun pistols. So it's not been a very successful turn, and it's looking like there's a potential for whitewashing for the Shock Army. So we'll be back soon with the final turn for the US.
So here we are at the end of the Ariadna turn 3 and my final turn of the game. So first of all, I used a regular order on the fire team and moved the forward observer up, who is conspicuously missing, to attempt to forward observe the sapper sniper, so I could call a rocket strike down. I failed my whip. I did manage to succeed the armor save and passed the courage save. Failed the courage save and had to dip into total cover. But it was at -6 my whip, so I kind of realised that I wasn't going to be succeeding with my forward observing. So instead, I switched over to the Unknown Ranger, who, with tactical awareness, moved up to the red car and traded some shots with the hacker, combi rifle, and the sniper regulars, as well as prompting an ARO from the combi rifle regular that was down here, who targeted Rosie. The Unknown Ranger unfortunately died to the sniper shots, but did succeed at dropping the combi rifle and the hacker regulars unconscious. With the fire team broken, I then allowed it to stay broken. I then just moved on to regular orders and Rosie, who moved up, popped some light rocket launcher shots at the sniper and the combi rifle regular here, and unfortunately didn't do too much to the sniper, who we kind of traded shots back and forth, and Rosie saved most of hers and the sniper saved hers from when one of us won the face-to-face, but I did succeed in killing the regular here. I then spent a further order to move up and fired again at the sniper, and I believe Rosie failed this face-to-face but did manage to succeed her save. My final order on her moved her into contact with the data terminal. She took a double action shot to the face from the sniper and died, but in a final act she managed to pass her whip roll and unveiled or unmasked the CSU that was hiding down beside the Happy Panda. With the decoy unmasked, I then spent an irregular order in the hard case, which moved round the corner and shot at it with a tactical bow. Now, because of the combination between stealth and the silent rule in the tactical bow, the delegate who was facing the wrong direction didn't get an ARO from it and was killed. I then Spent a final order on the forward observer Grunt, who attempted once more to set up an observation on the sniper and to try and bring in some rockets. Unfortunately, took a predictable double action round to the face and died, which left me with one regular order left, which I spent on the hard case to move him back into cover. So that is the end of the Ariadna turn, and on to the Shock Army's final turn. Currently, it's 2 victory points to me to none, and Martin's only got, I believe, 3 models left, the 2 Evos and 1 regular, and the sniper itself, so 4 models, sorry. So we'll see what he gets up to in his final turn.
So the final Shock Army turn was very quick, as we can imagine. The paramedic scooted round the back of the car, made it to the terminal and rolled a 4, actually activating it. He decided to chance it and call that the cyberpunk lady here might be the designated target, and was correct. However, because that took 2 orders, I wasn't then able to move either him or the sapper into position to shoot. And because I'd basically wasted my command tokens last turn trying to get some stability to my board, I didn't have any way to put either of the remotes into the main pool, which would have given me that final order that I could have potentially used. The remotes I didn't bother activating because they have no damaging guns and were pinned down by the hard case and Ben's final grunt, not to mention also the dozer and the tractor mule. So at the end of the game, I had 2 victory points because I kept my target alive. Ben had activated more consoles than me. He'd kept his target alive, and he'd killed more of the decoy targets than I had. So Ben ended up with a total of 7 victory points. So for the second game in a row, Ben wins 7-2 this time. So back to the drawing board, but we'll have a quick breakdown of how we think the game went from each of our point of view, talk through any particularly key points that we picked up or army list decisions, etc. So we'll see you in a minute.
So I'm very happy with how the game went. A few kind of learning points, I think, from it. Firstly, I think the core Link Fire team was phenomenal. I think the Unknown Ranger really did the heavy lifting for the list. Rosie seemed to be really good once the link had been severed, as it were, and she was able to then fire off a couple of light rocket shots and kind of then go and push the button. I wasn't too worried if she died in the end, because I really needed to try and unveil that final HVT, which I knew at this point was a decoy, but I wasn't going to get close enough to actually hit the Kuju delegate with any of my models, to be fair. A few things from Order Pool 1 I was a wee bit less than impressed with. Mainly the dozer and the tractor mule. I'm not convinced I used them particularly well. They were there more as a defensive piece. They're not too expensive points-wise. It's 16 points, I believe, for the tractor mule, and I believe it's 13 points for the dozer. So between the two of them, because you have to take the dozer to be able to take the tractor mule, it is 29 points, so it is a bit more expensive than just the component parts, as it were. However, the dozer is a specialist, and the tractor mule, in theory, does give me a good defensive piece. As I say, just don't think I used them particularly well. War Driver seemed to do very well, did what I needed it to do, activated the button very early and managed to unveil the designated target. Unfortunately, with it being the target, there was a way over that side, and the fact that the Harris team got taken apart in turn 1 effectively did mean I was always going to be an uphill battle to actually take that one out. In terms of Group 2, it was very hit or miss. The Antipode going down in turn 1 as effectively the first roll of the game did mean that I didn't necessarily get the most out of the team. But the Devil Dog himself did prove to be a thorn in Martin's side, particularly taking on Dart, which I wasn't particularly confident with due to the viral bow. However, the fact that it was able to shrug off quite a few kind of attacks and take her out, and also meant that the War Core, obviously a 3-point model, not the greatest adversary, as it were, but the fact that her stun weapons were going to be no use, as were the two drone bots behind it, did mean that it was quite a stifling factor on that side of the board for Martin. The hard case and the two foxtrots. The hard case, as we saw in the final turn, with the combination of stealth and silent, did prove to be worth its points, I think. Only 14 points as well. And with the decoy, I'm not sure how much of a kind of concern it was with Martin, if he saw through what it was likely to be or not. However, the fact that there were two camo tokens and the potential of having to work out which one was the actual hard case maybe had some sort of factor in the game. Foxtrot, the female Foxtrot died really early. The male one lasted a wee bit longer but didn't do particularly that much either. So maybe need to just think how I'm going to get the most out of them. Again, they were both forward observers, so I was hoping to use them to then combine with the tractor mule. However, against the sniper in particular, the whip, even whip 13, but because of the mimetism and cover, it's quite difficult to get those whips off, I think. All in all, though, happy with how the force performed, happy with how they looked. Obviously, still a few models to paint up, but I think on the table, this is the first time I'd been able to place the models I'd painted for the US down on the actual battlefield, and I was quite happy with how the paint scheme kind of stood out. Had been a wee bit concerned it would be a very dark scheme, however, I still think it looks quite nice on the board. I'll probably brighten them up with a wee bit of camo, on the trousers in particular, and some of the more kind of uniform jackets and that, just to add a wee bit of brightness to them, because they are quite dark.
Well, it must be said that was a bit of a humbling experience. So there's a few things I took from that game, but at the end of the day, it's an army I'm not particularly used to playing with. It's one that, whilst I've had my eye on for a long time, without being able to get hold of them, I didn't really understand how the army maybe worked. And I also, rather foolishly, had not read the profiles and was under the happy illusion that Bagmari were all armor 3. But what did I learn? Firstly, I should never have given up turn 1. I should have taken turn 1. The Teak Blang on its own was not able to keep Ben pinned down. The AP HMG was too much of a threat, and actually it didn't cover enough of the centre of the board to be able to stop the Unknown Ranger. Placing it prone when I decided to take the courage test and then of course failed it was really, really foolish too. The composition of the army was not particularly well done. I thought I was being really clever sticking both fire teams in the first order pool, so that way if I had turn 1, Ben couldn't really minimise the impact of my force in the same way, and I'd thought it would allow probably the Bagmari to rampage through the table, just chewing through orders whilst the regulars formed a more dependable fire base. And the flaw with this was actually that the second order pool had nothing good apart from the Teak Blang in it. It had 2 remotes which literally didn't move all game and had no impact on it. It had Dart, who I did not use particularly well, a War Core who I'd taken because I had 3 points left, who again contributed nothing because the Devil Dog was immune to non-lethal damage, a Tech Bee who's been sent back to basic engineering school because, well, she pretty much killed my teak blang, and an engineer who I really foolishly deployed in base contact, and this just allowed Ben to kill him with a rocket. So the list wasn't particularly well thought out. What I should have done was stuck the teak blang and the engineer in pool 1. I should have stuck the Bagmari into pool 2, and then I would have had 7 orders to basically throw at the teak blang, because the regular fire team would have just sort of held ground, and then a lot more orders to use between the Bagmari and some of the more specialist pieces like Dart. I'd also wanted to try out the sniper rifles for a change, because normally they get very much left at home, and unfortunately I had a real lack of HMGs and Spitfires, which meant that I didn't have large amounts of dice to throw at Ben, and the sniper rifle towards the end of the game found itself suddenly being caught in really poor range bands. To give them the due though, the regulars did well. The Sapper for sniper rifle was definitely my best piece. The teak blang, I could see how it was good, I just didn't use it particularly well. I did have some truly abysmal dice rolls, which really didn't help either. But the army looks fantastic, absolutely delighted with them. I want to say thank you again to Toby. The absolute joy to open, to put on the table. I look forward to the little bits of painting I'm going to do to these models, and hopefully I'll find a way to make them work a wee bit better. Acontecimento is very much an army that you can sort of clog up the mid-table. You can place mines, fast pandas. You can make it very difficult for the opponent to get to you. You can see through the lower levels of mimetism, and even the higher levels of mimetism don't affect you in the same way. You've got the option of the Knights of Montesa. Now, I'd originally had a Knight in the force and then replaced it with Dart, which on second thoughts was a poor choice. The Knight of Montesa, I think, would have gone through the Devil Dog like it wasn't there. And that's really what the force needs. When people get up close and personal to the force I took, there was nothing I could do once the teak blang was out of action, and it was never going to be able to cover all the ground. I also, the idea of deploying on top of the building and the reality of deploying on top of the building, very different. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe and leave a like on the video. It really does help the channel. Any questions, any thoughts, feel free to put them in the comments section. If you know nothing about the game and just want to know a bit more, please ask. We will possibly do some slightly different videos where we might just rattle through the more basic sides of Infinity and talk about the models we use and that sort of thing. And until next time, stay safe and happy gaming. And thank you again for watching.